Hi there everyone, this is Boofrad, and welcome to some new D&D content. Since it's currently summer break and my college D&D group is just all over the place, we can't really play D&D too often anymore, and that sucks for me because I am just addicted right now. I cannot get enough D&D. And so to counteract that, I've started doing a lot of homebrewing. I've gotten really into making, as of right now, subclasses, but I'm looking to get into homebrewing anything I can. And I believe that one of the best ways to get better at something is to learn what to avoid while you're doing it. And so today we're going to be looking at some of the worst rated homebrew on D&D Beyond and just seeing how we could fix it. Alright, so we've got three different things here. We've got a fighter subclass, a spell, and then a magic item. And I chose some that weren't like the absolute lowest rated. You know, this one here is only a minus 50 as opposed to the minus 547 rogue subclass. And this one's I think like minus 20 and minus 20 or so. That's just because I believe that, there's some really good stuff on here that just wasn't executed well. And so I want to look at that and not just the garbage of, oh, 9th level spell nuke, you nuke a town. And so we're going to be looking at some ones that I think have some really good potential to them that just kind of fell short in execution. The first one here is going to be the Dark Knight Fighter. Now, this one, when I clicked on it, I thought it was going to be Batman. I was a little bit surprised to see it wasn't. But then as I read on, I couldn't really figure out exactly what it is trying to be. And I don't think that it knows what it's trying to be either. Let's just go ahead and look through it here. The only description for it is that it is a powerful knight that starts with a longsword, chain mail armor, and a shield. Problem with that is you take your subclass at level 3, so I guess you would just have to have that planned out from the start. That's kind of nitpicky though, because this is where it starts to really fall apart a little bit. The third level feature for it is Full Counter, which allows the user to redirect the damage from an enemy back to the enemy, and this can only be used once per long rest, and I think that is just really strong for a level 3 feature. And it's also not explained super well. I'm assuming you don't take the damage. Oh yeah, redirect. So you wouldn't take the damage, but still that can be a little bit overpowered, and I think once every long rest. I think this one just needs a lot of tweaking if it's going to be kept. Definitely not at level 3. Then the level 7 feature is going to be Poisonous Touch. The Dark Knights needed a way to stop people from touching their perfect armor, so they made a deadly toxin. This one, an Ungodly Warcry, is the most insight we get as to what the subclass is really going for, and it kind of seems like the Dark Knights are maybe like a group of knights, and I guess they're very infamous. We'll get to the war cries in a second, but they are very recognizable and feared, and they take a lot of pride in who they are, is the kind of vibe I'm getting here. But they made this deadly toxin, and touching it can either cause 2d12 poison damage over 2 turns. Doesn't say anything else, so we're just going to ignore the either. So it can cause 2d12 poison damage over 2 turns, but a drawback is that the toxin can be transferred to swords by touch, therefore giving the enemy poison damage for a swing 1 turn. I think this one is a really interesting concept. It does have some problems, though. It makes it seem like their armor is always like that. So anytime you attack them, you are taking the 2d12 poison damage no matter what, without a saving throw. And the other problem is 2d12 poison damage is a bit much for level 7, I think, for just any time you're hit. And so I think this one also has some problems, but that's the level 7 feature. And then the level, I think it's 10 feature is Ungodly Warcry. The Dark Knights have a recognizable war cry that can frighten someone for a couple of seconds. Enemies within earshot and are not behind a wall roll to not be frightened with disadvantage. They succeed if they roll a 15 or higher. And now I really like this one. This is, I think, the best out of the features they have on here. I think it's a great idea. It just isn't executed the best. I don't think it should be the level 10 feature. If anything, which we'll get to in a little bit, I think this should be an earlier feature, and then change it to be not rolled with disadvantage, because that's a bit much, and then make it a saving throw, probably charisma, and then just have a DC that scales instead of a flat 15. But I really like the concept behind this one. I think that's got something there. And then the last two, they're not the best. You have better sword handling and strength. With practice and lifting, the Dark Knight can now deal more damage with any type of sword, plus 15 flat bonus, and then you gain plus 4 strength. Doesn't say a maximum there, so like theoretically you could have a fighter with, I guess, 34 strength technically if they get the right stuff, but whatever. And then the last one is just a flat plus 5 to your AC. Elder Dark Knights have been taught how to make an armored gel for their armor. This gel increases your AC score by 5 whenever you have armor on. And then since they are supposed to wield chainmail and a shield, that would give them, I believe, 23 AC. But that wouldn't be until level 18 or whatever it is. But still, that's not the best. Alright, so how would I actually fix this class? I think it has two things going for it. It has the Dark Knights as like this infamous feared group that takes pride in themselves. And then they also have kind of a thing here of like counteracting damage. So when they, instead of taking damage, they deal damage. I think those two things could be played with and it could become something special. In order to make this work, I have a little subclass guide here that I use whenever I am homebrewing subclasses, and I think we could really make something work here. The level 3 feature gives you a new system to use in combat and often gives you a damage boost with it. I think for this one we could combine full counter and poisonous touch into one thing here. I think that both of them have a cool concept going for them but are taken a bit too extreme. And so I would fix that by doing one ability there and have it be something along the lines of when an enemy hits you on your turn, you can use a reaction to strike them back for just one attack. And have that be probably either your proficiency bonus or your con modifier, something like that. But that way it keeps the idea of when you get hit, you get to do damage back, but it changes it up so that it's not just they take 2d12 damage whenever they hit you, or you can just fully negate the damage and deal the damage back to them. I do think we could bring full counter back at a higher level and tweak it some, but as of right now, I think the level 3 feature should just be the ability to strike an enemy back as a reaction equal to your con or proficiency, something like that. I think that's just a solid third level feature that works with the player fantasy of this class, or at least what I think it's going for. And then at level 7, you get your out of combat action and system option. This level can be a combat upgrade, but typically not a damage boost, which was why I think the Ungodly Warcry will get bumped up tier to level 7. I think you should remove the disadvantage on the roll, and instead of just having it be a 15, I think it should be probably a Charisma or Wisdom saving throw, and the DC would be 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your Constitution modifier to make it more in line with spells at this level, as instead of just a flat 15 DC that doesn't scale as you get higher, but is a little bit high at this lower-ish level. I think that would be the way to go. Alright, and for our level 10 feature, I think we could do something just to expand upon the level 3 of our, I don't know what to call it, our strike back or whatever. Maybe it could be something along the lines of when an enemy misses an attack on you, you can use your reaction to make an attack on them with advantage. So it's kind of expanding on the whole striking back thing, but this time, you know, they missed their attack, you get advantage to strike them back. I think that could be something here, because a lot of the features of this class seem to go with the whole thing of like punishing enemies for attacking you and dealing damage to you, and so I think we could expand upon that, and even if they missed you, you can still take that opportunity to attack them. I think that could work there. And then for their level 15, I'm not really sure what we could do there. Maybe just bring back full counter, I suppose, and have it be, have one use of full counter per long rest, because at this point, enemies are going to be doing a lot of damage, and so, you know, you can't just be using 3 back-to-back-to-back full counters on the BBEG. I think once per long rest is pretty good. So just have it where you would negate all damage done to you from that one attack and just dish it back to the other person. I think that would work there. Alright, and for our final level 18 ability here, I think that we could make it so that you're now able to use your counterattacks on any enemies that attack your allies and not just yourself, as long as they're in range of you, and make it so that whenever you use Second Wind, you regain all uses of your counterattack. Alright, so here I've drafted up a brief little explanation for the new and improved Dark Knight subclass. So as you can see here, we have our Counter-Strike, Ungodly Warcry, Full Counter, and then I just had to come up with the names, so Missed Opportunity and Ultimate Defender. And then I added a brief little flavor text up here just to kind of explain the subclass, where it says, the Dark Knights are a group of knights who excel in punishing their opponents in whatever mistakes they make. And I know that this isn't perfect. I mean, I made it up pretty much on the spot over the course of the last like 10, 15 minutes, but I think it does improve on a pretty cool concept that is buried underneath a few broken abilities in this class. And so, yeah, huge thank you to SnowWolf for making the subclass structure guide here. It is very helpful for me. I use it whenever I'm making a homebrew. And let's move on to the next thing. Alright, next up we're going to be looking at our spell. We have Aukas's Wonderful Item. This one wasn't too unpopular. It only had -24 score on here. And it's an interesting one. I think it definitely does have a really cool concept behind it. But as you'll see pretty quickly, the execution just does not work. Alright, so as you can see, it is a 9th level conjuration spell with a 4-minute casting time and verbal somatic components. And the way that it works is a wondrous item appears in your hand, next to you, or on a coat rack that disappears as you take off the item, depending on the item's type. And how you do that is you roll a d20 and consult the following chart for the rarity of the object you create. It's going to be 1 to 10 is an uncommon magic item, and 11 to 20 is going to be rare. And after you roll, a fey-like ethereal monster will tell you what rarity is, and then you must tell it what wondrous item you would like. After you cast the spell, you can after you cast the spell, you can cast it until you expend all 4 points it has. If you expend all your points, you must finish a long rest, and after you do, restore 1d4 points to the spell. And in case you somehow learn 10th level spells, I guess, you can add another d20 for each higher spell slot you cast this in, and get multiple items. Now, I think there's a really cool concept here of being able to produce magical items, but this is definitely a bit much. I think that it makes sense for it to be a very high-level spell, although I might bump it down to maybe an 8th, maybe a 7th level spell, because I think 9th level, if you really want to get in the higher level thing here, you obviously can't do 9th level, and if they want that here, like they wrote it in there, clearly they want that, so we're going to make it, I think, a 7th level spell, just so you can have that. And then I think the big thing that needs to change here is it needs to be a proper chart where you don't get to choose what item you get. Instead of this, it'll just be the fey-like ethereal monster will bring you the item. And then I think that there needs to be the option of a failure. And so I think we need to go in and create a proper chart for this. So I think maybe something along the lines of 1 to 10 is a fail, and then 11 to 16... or maybe like an 11 to 14 is just a standard wondrous item or common magical item. And then I said to 16, so a 17 or an 18 would be uncommon, 19 or 20 would be rare. Probably not that. That wouldn't be the order. But having a fail in there so you're not guaranteed an item and not being guaranteed at worst an uncommon, I think would be good to have here. And then this little thing here is weird because it's kind of treating this like a subclass feature. And I almost wonder if this wouldn't be better as a subclass feature for either like a wizard subclass that's all about magical items or just a artificer subclass that really hones in on the magical items and gives you more infusions or something like that. But an artificer subclass would be very centered around infusions and creating magical items. Alright, so I think the first thing to do would be to make an actual chart here. And so we're going to say 1 to 10 is a failure. Then 11 to 14, wondrous, or common, we'll say. Oh, I gotta put the boom. Then we're going to have 15 to, I think, 17 will do. And this could change. Or 15 to 18, we'll say. This could change. Uncommon. And then we're going to have a 19 or a 20 is going to get you that rare. But you shouldn't get the choice, I don't think. I think it should be pulled from a chart. And so I'm going to find a quick chart of magical items here. Alright, so this is going to be our first table here. We're going to go ahead and put this into the Google Doc. Just going to go ahead and put that right here. Alright, and for the 15 to 18 range, we're going to look at this table here. Boom. It's got some pretty good stuff on here. it's scaling a little bit. Since this is a higher level spell, you can't just have nothing on here. Alright, we're going to have this one here for the 19 or 20 option. So you roll the d20, and then based off of your roll, you get to roll, possibly, you get to roll off of one of these 3 tables, and that will give you your magic item instead of you choosing it. And then we will have we can keep the Fey-like ethereal monster here, but instead we'll just have it so that after you roll, the Fey-like ethereal monster will bring you the item. And so then, as much as I like this concept, I don't think it's going to work. So we'll just go ahead and get rid of this. Boom. And then, I do like the limiting of this because I think this is a very overpowered spell. You don't want people casting this all the time. And so we're going to go ahead and change that to be, once you roll on a table with this spell, that table becomes unavailable until your next long rest. So say, it's your first roll, you roll on table C. After that, if you get a 19 to 20, it'll just count as a table B. And say you roll on a table B, it'll count as a table A, that'll count as a fail. And so you get at most 3 uses of this. I think that's a much more balanced way to go about it. Especially because one of the problems you could run into here is that if you have 3 level 7 spellcasters, or, 9th level I guess, but this goes to every spellcasting class. And so you could have a warlock, a sorcerer, a wizard, and I think a druid? You could have multiple people with this spell, and then they're guaranteed 12 to 16 uses of it a day. And that's just insane. And so I think making it an 8th level spell with these stipulations, I think would make it a lot more fair. Because as of right now, it is definitely an unfair spell. And so I'm just going to go ahead and throw in the name here. Alright. And like I said earlier, I do think that this could honestly work as a subclass feature as opposed to a spell, but working with it as it is right now, I think that this is how it'd be more optimal as a spell. Alright, let's go ahead and jump into the last one right here. Alright, and so last up, we have the Dagger of Summoning Creature. And how this works is to activate the effects of this artifact, one must stab themselves with it and pass a wisdom saving throw of 15. Regardless of whether they fail or succeed, the user will take damage equal to 1d20 with no failures, 2d20 after your first failure, 3d20 after your second failure, per each use. Which is insane. So if you fail it the first time, that's 1d20. Try again and you fail, that is 2d20. And then try it a third time and fail, that is going to be 3d20 damage to you. There is no way you survive that. Having 6d20 damage. And oh, that's right. So if you fail 3 times, that is an additional 6d20 for a total damage of 12d20, and the artifact is destroyed. If you pass the saving throw, it allows one summoning of any player, creature, humanoid, or beast desired, and the creature will appear in an unoccupied space which you choose within 120 feet of you. All summoned are friendly to the summoner and obey any commands you give it, no matter what language you use. If you fail to command it, the summon defends itself against attacks but takes no other actions. All summoned must make a charisma saving throw of 18 each turn until they pass. Upon passing a charisma saving throw, the summoned player, creature, humanoid, or beast will regain its own will. Now, I think all of you can see the problems here. First off, 12d20 damage. And second off, any creature that you want, you could summon, a Tarask to fight by your side. That's insane. And so I think that in order to keep this and have it work, I think it could be something along the lines of, while it is a dagger, you can double it as a bag of tricks, I believe they're called. Let me see here. Heavy tools. I think it's bag of tricks. Yes, bag of tricks. And so how these works is there's a few different versions of them. Let's see. We'll just go with the rust one. And so how it works is you use a magic action to pull a fuzzy object from the bag and throw it up to 20 feet. And when it lands, it transforms into a creature that you determine by rolling on the table. And so it has 3 uses per day. And it ranges from something of CR0 to CR2, or CR1. All right. Oh, CR2 right there. But yeah, so it's things between CR0 and CR2. And I think that is a much better way to do it. Because summoning any creature you want is just insane, especially when it, no matter what, bends to your will. And so I think there's a lot of changes that need to be made to this. And I think definitely using a bag of tricks approach will be one of them. But let's go ahead and get it put into the document here. Alright, and so we're going to have our dagger of summoning creature in here. And so I think that the first change is going to be to get a list of 8 creatures that you can summon. And I think that this could honestly depend on where it's found. So this would be up to some DM discretion here. So say you find it, you know, in like the Icewind Dale. Then it would be different than if you found it in Waterdeep, because they have very different animals there. And so I think you could play with that if you wanted to, or if you wanted just like a uniform list, just pull from one of the bag of tricks. Let's just do this one, just for simplicity's sakes. Alright, so here we go. We've gone and kind of fixed it up a little bit. And so now we have it where this is a normal dagger that has been enchanted with magic. 3 times per day, you are able to roll a d8 as a magic action and summon one of the following animals based on your roll. And we can say that it acts as a wand of sorts, and you just kind of point it at the ground where you want that creature to appear. All summoned creatures are friendly to the summoners and will obey any commands that you give it, no matter what language you use. If you do not give a command to it, the summoned creature defends itself against attackers, but takes no other actions. So we took out the whole thing about making the charisma saving throw to regain its willpower, and then we just have a basic little list right here. Now, honestly, I think this is a really cool concept, because it's combining a magic item that already exists, but tweaking it and kind of turning it into its own thing, and I think that's kind of cool. This is definitely one of those items that I could see a DM giving their players early on and forgetting about it, and then having it just go crazy in the final battle. But honestly, I think that this is a big improvement. It's still not perfect. There's definitely some kinks that could be ironed out here. I think giving it its own custom list of animals could be better. But I think just for like a quick, like little 5-minute fixer-upper there, I think it works. Alright, I hope this video has helped you see that there's a lot of great homebrew concepts out there that just haven't been the best executed. And that just because something is downvoted doesn't mean it's totally bad. Because, like, let's be honest, there are some homebrew things on D&D Beyond that are downvoted for a reason. And they are just bad. Like, no redeeming values. But I hope that you guys see here that even though these ones have a lot of problems, there is some really good stuff in them at their core. And they can really work when taken in the right direction. And so, yeah, I hope this guide inspires you to go out there and make your own homebrew content. And thank you for watching. Feel free to subscribe. This is Boofrat signing out.